Hi everyone.
Hey Miles.
If you can start sitting down, or if you want to come up closer and get closer to the action, you're always welcome here. The front row is wide open. This might be the only time you get to be this close. But in all reality, thank you for coming out. This is the fourth day of our Journalism and Media Conference. We're very lucky, very fortunate to have Jesse here. He is a McGill grad. He went here in the 90s. He was on a 5-year plan, like many of us. So you can sort of get to bond with him over that. But he is a journalist, a publisher, an editor. He's been in written journalism and broadcast and audio. He's worked in radio, podcast. Obviously, many of you know him from his work freelancing with Toronto Star or with Canadaland. But we're very happy to have him here. So the way that this will work is that it'll probably go around 50-55 minutes. The first 35 to 40 of them will be myself asking questions to Jesse, and then we'll have 10 to 15 minutes of just any audience questions that you have, and then at 7:30, hopefully at 6:30. We'll probably start a bit after that. We'll have Trincala talking to Andrea Bennett and Robert Frank, and that's going to be about freelance journalism. So obviously many of you are interested in journalism, so if you're trying to cut your teeth in it or trying to get your way into it, that might be a helpful panel to go to. And our last presentation is going to be with Jed Kahane of CTV, who's back there. Hi, Jed. And Deborah Arbeck of CBC, and they'll be talking about broadcast, which is a side that we don't really get to talk about or see that much of at McGill. But here's Jesse around. So, throughout your career, starting from when you first got into business, you've covered arts, culture, you've had a bit of humor and pranks thrown in there, some tech, but you sort of settled into the niche or the role of media criticism. Why have you decided to stay in this sort of space in the Canadian media landscape?
Well, I guess it seemed like something that nobody else was doing. When I decided to kind of poke around it, I was a fan of things like The Daily Show, On the Media, Gawker, when David Carr was the media critic at the time. And there were dozens, there still are, a lot of media critics working for American newspapers, and I became increasingly aware that there was just nobody doing that sort of thing in Canada at the time. And I was, I kind of go through these like 5-year cycles where I get bored of whatever I've been covering and try to move into something else. And I started to pitch stories that were more media-related stories than tech-related stories. And I started to kind of even twist, because everything was turning into tech anyhow, so I was like, what, it's on the internet, so it's a tech story. But it was really about the media. And I was met with incredible resistance. There was a strange reluctance on the part of editors and producers who I had good working relationships with, most of whom showed a lot of enthusiasm, agreed with me in principle that we needed more media criticism in Canada, but when it came time for them to commit to anything ongoing, a column, a regular feature, a show, even like individual pitches would kind of be met with initial enthusiasm, and then I would get a no, with some strange reason that I didn't quite understand or buy. And there was like a couple of years there where it was just increasingly bugging me that I couldn't kind of get a foothold in doing that kind of work. And eventually my wife was like, just shut up, and if you want to do it. So that's when I started Canadaland as a podcast, and I was still working for Maclean's and Toronto Life doing tech stuff, and I had this podcast coming out each week. But immediately it found an audience. It started to become more than just a conversation forum. It started to become a source. People brought me news. People brought me scoops, which I'd never really been like that kind of, there was reporting involved in writing columns, there was reporting involved in doing documentaries, but I never considered myself a reporter. And here people were just like kind of news stories about the news. So I started just running them, investigating them and verifying them and then running them. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. And after after a year of doing it, the audience had grown, you know, Canada big anyhow, and it was costing me money to produce, so I turned to crowdfunding, and it was instantly a success getting the crowdfunding going. And it went from being a podcast I lost money on to like hopefully a paid hobby to being my full-time job, and now we're a company that does this. And there was 6 of us. There's 4 permanent full-time people. There's 6 people working full-time right now, and we're launching new podcasts. So it's just been. I mean, why am I kind of committed to it? It's both because I've been given kind of a mandate from the audience and from the paying supporters who are basically saying, we are paying you to stay on this beat. We need this covered, and also because one of my initial fears that I would run out of material. And that was one of the excuses I got. Was like, well, there isn't that much. We're a small country. It's not as interesting as American media stories. Like, show me a story about Anderson Cooper and people are interested, but who really cares? It's Canadian. That turned out to be bullshit. People care. I mean, it's turned into like one of the most interesting beats in the country. And the stories keep coming. And the stories are more serious. And, you know, I kind of started with this idea of like, it'll be a mixture of like, after work gossip, having beers, like, you know, a little bit of serious stuff about advertiser influence. I had no idea what I was getting into and how much, you know, I mean, this is a very, for better or for worse, it's a very eventful time in the Canadian media. I mean, it's an existential crisis, so that generates a lot of news.
So sort of the way that you described it is, it was pretty non-existent, the state of media criticism in Canada as a whole. Have you seen that change at all? Not necessarily with your site, but as a result of your site coming about, have other people in the Canadian media landscape decided to turn the lens inwards and focus on, okay, what else are we doing in the industry? And have they started to look at each other and sort of peer review what they do?
Yeah, like overnight. And we were just talking about how the Globe and Mail, which I think was like, they always have 2 media reporters, like a feature writer and a reporter on staff, and just wouldn't go near anything. And then the story, we were just discussing the Globe and Mail, James Bradshaw reported on this crazy circumstance at CTV News, where Kevin Krull, a very senior executive, was leaning on the newsroom after a CRTC decision went against Bell's interests, and basically was telling the newsroom, keep the CRTC chairman off the air today. I don't want to see this guy on the air. A direct intrusion, you know, church and state, the business side telling editorial what to do. There were apparently a shouting match involving very senior people, and that was a great story that James Bradshaw broke, and it was like named names and just stuff that you'd never read the Globe and Mail before. After I worked with Kevin Donovan, the Toronto Star, we saw a couple stories come out of the Star from Donovan about Leslie Roberts and about Evan Solomon. So all of a sudden it became like there was like an omerta, like we do not report on each other. I mean, and one of the things that catalyzed this for me was like the way the media was so terrified to just say what was obvious during the Margaret Wente scandal. Like people were like, it was just so obviously egregious plagiarism and everyone was pussyfooting around it. I mean, there was just like a sense of like, we don't do journalism to journalists. And then it's now okay, and I welcome the competition. Yeah, it's great. It's great that everybody's just, you know, biting each other's backs and cutting each other down. It's very good. I think it's a good thing.
So you got your start in radio in Toronto. And radio obviously had its heyday, then video came in, then digital journalism sort of shaking it up. But we've seen a resurgence in podcasting, and you're part of that movement. Is there any difference between radio and podcasting, or are the 2 mediums inherently the same or inherently different, or what sort of differentiates them in your mind?
The way I put it on the first episode of Canadaland, when I was interviewing Michael Enright, and he was sort of feigning ignorance. What's a podcast? What the hell is this? And I said, it's like your radio show, but people listen to it on purpose. So I think that's the big difference, is that there's intentionality in a podcast. People made it's very active. Like you can just sort of like happen to catch radio, and you don't even think necessarily. There's very few shows that are destination radio that you're like, I want to hear that show. In fact, you're much more likely to be motivated to turn something off. Like, oh, I hate this guy, and you turn off the radio. But to like, it's this time, I'm turning on the radio, you better, like, Ira Glass has that. Very few people have that. So I think that, you know, radio is station dependent. People, like, they commit to CBC or whatever, and they just stick with that, and it's like when they're driving to work. It's just something they put on when they're washing the dishes. That's actually similar to podcasts. People use it the same way, but when it comes to podcasts, you have to be, there's the value proposition. There's many very good podcasts. So what do you expect people to listen to yours?
The differentiation of what makes you your podcast.
That's it, and either it's, there's different value propositions. Either it's like, with This American Life, I think the quality of the journalism and storytelling is exceptionally high, and it's a very well resourced and incredibly well written and produced show. And for me, with like a show like What the Fuck with Mark Maron, it's like, I like this comedian, I'll listen to an interview with him, I don't like these ones, I like her, and I just pick it, episode by episode. We try to make podcasts that you'll want to hear every episode, and it's not like this one but not that one. Don't always get there, but that's the idea, is that we want to make it part of people's weekly routine, and so we just try to make sure that there's always compelling for different reasons, that we act like what we're talking about really matters. And that was the one thing that I really, I butted up against when I was told, like, this doesn't matter so much, it's small potatoes, like, we're just Canada, who cares what happens in our newsrooms? So we treat it like it matters, and it's amazing how many people, like, outside of, this sort of inside baseball, like, people who aren't in the media, they're interesting stories, so people are I'm not answering your question. So what makes podcasting different? I think as a medium, we call it radio, and if you have radio skills, you're probably going to be a good podcaster, but I think that it's more intimate. Right. There's different things with mic technique where, like, you don't have such a big announcer voice when you're podcasting. It's like, someone's like, fuck off, Like, somebody's listening to you with earbuds as they walk, so you get a bit closer to the mic, and it's a bit more of an intimate experience. And I just think there has to be a strong reason for everything you put out there. We're not trying to fill up time. I can do 20 minutes, I can do 50 minutes. It's just whatever the episode needs to be. That's how long the episode is. So I guess those are the fundamental differences.
So as you mentioned earlier on, you attended McGill, and is there something sort of about your McGill experience that influences the way you do your work today, or something that you can draw on in terms of something that you learned while you were in Montreal working, or while you were a student at McGill?
I'll try to answer, but by the way, this is a trip being, like, I haven't been on campus in 18 years. I had classes in this room. I think I wrote exams. I have recurring panic attack dreams that take place, like it's recreated. There's, like, I had an experience where I was publishing an underground student newspaper in high school, and it's a long and not terribly interesting story, but it was profitable, and it was going to different schools in Toronto, and I was getting interest from journalism schools to come, like, we want you to come to journalism. I was even getting freelance offers, but I had this weird mental disconnect, like, yeah, I'm publishing an underground student newspaper, but I'm not interested in journalism. That's, like, I had a very low opinion of the news. The news was very establishment to me, and it felt like not something that I was interested in pursuing. Somehow I could fit it in, like, I'm doing an underground student newspaper, that's a different thing. And then I came here with no intention of pursuing journalism, though I think I wrote, just because I was interested in comics, I did like one article for the Tribune where I interviewed Michael Allred, this cartoonist, just for an excuse to talk to him. I was interested in a lot of other things, and I didn't think that journalism was going to be anything that I was going to get into, but there was an experience here that I can see led to what happened, and that was that I started pranking here. For a documentary class. I was taking a documentary class, I don't know if Gary Beitel still teaches here, documentary maker, wonderful guy with the NFB, and he taught a course where you could make documentaries. And I was very interested in pranking and kind of the psychology of pranks. And this was right when this stuff was getting interesting, like The Daily Show, like I said, and then LEG, and the way that it was very punk, it was very, like, very biting satire. It had a relationship to the news, but it was more like tearing down the news or pointing at the emperor has no clothes, and it was also the first .com bubble. I'm digressing wild. Can I tell a little story? Like a 3-minute story. So it was like the first big .com bubble, and nobody knew what the hell the internet was, and people would believe anything about the internet. So I decided to try my first media prank and film it for this documentary class. So we put out a press release, and we found who to fax it to in the local media. And what we claimed was that we were behavioral science students at McGill. And we had discovered that babies as young as 6 months old could communicate with each other over the internet. Before baby, and I have kids now, 6 months old, their babies are adorable, they can't do shit. But we claim that a 6-month-old could actually, like, you could hook up your baby to our gear and then hook up a baby in Australia and they would be like having this baby conversation over the internet. And we blew the minds of the administration at McGill, they couldn't deal with it, so we're going commercial. And for $6.99 a month, your baby could be a part of babyspeak.com. And you know, we had this whole spiel about like virtual reality suits for babies and all, you know, like, why not do this and get your baby, you know, up on the internet, they'll have great job skills, you know, this is the new economy. And we got a call back from CFCF 12, what's the local station? Somebody?
Never heard of
It was, and it was a guy named Bob Benedetti. Hi, Steve. And Bob Benedetti said, we want to see this. We want to see a baby use this website. So can we come and film this? And I kind of panicked, and I was thrilled that they took the bait. But I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to get a baby? So I found an actress who had a 2-year-old. And there was like an internet cafe. It was a very novel concept. There was an internet cafe in the plateau. So we got them to agree to let us come in after hours. So it's all happening. I'm being very nervous. I'm there. There's a baby there. The news crew pulls up. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, our website was just a shell of a website where nothing, like, you needed a password to get in. And you couldn't get into anything because there was no website. And the news crew comes, they start filming the baby, and then Bob is like, come play with the computer, baby. And the baby has no interest in the computer. And I'm like, fuck, like, this is it, the jig is up. And that's not what happened. Bob Benedetti instead went and bought a bottle of orange juice, and he gave the baby the orange juice. And the baby had a sip of orange juice. And then he took the orange juice away from the baby, and he put the orange juice next to the computer. And the baby like toddles up to the computer and kind of reaches up toward